God knows what you want, my sister and brother. He knows exactly what you want. But is it what you really need? Now, hear me out. You prayed for it, you cried for it, you've even been dreaming about it. And God knows exactly what you want. But today, because He knows what you say you want, He is asking you, yeah, you, is that what you really want? Or is it just what your heart thinks it needs right now? There's a difference. And sometimes what looks good to us isn't what's best for us. Let's talk about it. Let's be real. We all have something that deep down in our hearts we really want God to do for us. And that's why we're praying and we're seeking Him constantly. Maybe it's a relationship, a better job, financial stability, a platform, healing in a broken area in our lives. And you know what? For weeks, months, even years, you've been asking God, when, God? Why not now? But here's the truth. God doesn't just look at what you're asking for, He looks at the motive behind what you're asking. Why do you want that person back? Why do you want that promotion so badly? Why are you really praying for that door to open for you? Why are you praying to go back to something that broke you in the first place? James 4:3 tells us, it says it best. Sometimes we don't receive because our motives are misaligned for what we're asking for. It's not because God is cruel or it's not because He's silent, but because He's protecting you from a result that you think in the moment you want, but would actually crush you. James, I remember a time when I was praying for a breakthrough. I was praying for open doors. I was praying for God to give me a relationship. It looked like it would be the perfect relationship, because everybody I had been dealing with in the past weren't working. And so they relied on my finances, or if they were working, they weren't making a lot of money. And so they relied on me to pay for all the travels, to pay for everything. But this one particular person I started dating, he was a police lieutenant. He had a career. He had been a lieutenant. Well, he had been in a force for 24 years. So for me, it looked like the perfect opportunity. Everything I thought I wanted was in front of me. But deep down, I knew my peace about it was off. Because the reality is, I wanted it to find security in Him. God is never going to give you anything that you're going to find security in outside of Him. And you know what? That situation fell through. It didn't work out. I was hurt at first about it until months later when I saw exactly what God saved me from. What I wanted wasn't really what I needed in the moment. I needed to draw closer to God. I needed my relationship to be mended with God because I had kind of fell off. And what I realized that God's delay in not giving me a relationship was actually His deliverance, His protection from me having a broken heart. I had come up through trauma. And so now to go through another broken relationship was only going to give me more trauma. So I ask you this, my sister and brother, what have you been begging God for? Are you willing to surrender that desire that you have if it doesn't align with God's best for you? Are you willing to trust that when God delays and not give you something, it's because He knows that what He has is so much better? God sees the full picture. You only see the highlighted reel of what you want and how good it would make you feel and how good it might look to others. Sometimes the delay is God's divine protection. Sometimes that closed door is God's mercy in disguise. And if you're honest with yourself, have you ever chased something and later realized it wasn't worth it? That's why God is asking you, do you want it because I placed that desire in you? Or are you chasing something that was never me or from me to begin with? Proverbs 14:12 tells us, a way that looks right to us ends in destruction. That means some things feel good in the moment, but leads us to heartache, more confusion, or regret. Also, Psalms 34:7 says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. But the key to that is delighting in the Lord first. Because when you delight yourself in Him, when you give Him full access to tell you what you really need, because we don't know. In our limited vision, we see what we see with our natural eye, and it looks good to us, but we don't know. But the key to first is asking God, Lord, what do you say about this relationship? What do you say about this job I want? What do you say about this promotion? What do you say about this business? What do you say about this child? Because when you do that, your desire begins to reflect His will, not just what you want. So maybe today your prayer isn't, God, give it to me. God, make sure I get it. God, make me happy with this desire. But God, if it's not for me, take the craving away. Change my heart if it's not in line with you. That's spiritual maturity, my sister and brother. That's how you get peace that passes all understanding, not by forcing what you want, but by trusting what God's will is for you, believing that God has your best interests at heart. I've wanted so many things in my life, my sister and brother. And a lot of those things, hindsight now on the other side of it, when I look back, it wasn't the best thing for me. It wasn't what I really needed at the moment. In the moment, I thought I did. So I ask you, what is that thing right now that you want, that you just absolutely feel like you need because you've been pressing? Many of us as women, we want to be married. The society has made it seem like this great big idea, this great big thing that we need to be married, so we have the all-American dream, or we have a house, not an apartment or somewhere to stay, but that we have this huge big 3-bedroom house, because that's what society says we should have. But what is God's will for you? Is that what God is saying that you need? Or is it just something this illusion you made up in your mind? I want you to turn from that and ask God, Lord, what is your best for me? What is it that you will for me to have? What is it that you are willing to surrender to God today and say, God, not my will, but your will be done. This is what I want. I lay this on the altar. I trust that you will do what's best for me. What is it, my sister and brother? Because listen, again, God knows what you want, but is it what you really need? Is it what's going to be best for you? Or when are you going to stop asking for what you want and then surrender to God and say, God, not as I will, but let your will be done? I pose these 4 questions to you, my sister and brother, and I want you to really think about this. And I want you to ask yourself this: why is God saying not yet to my deepest prayers and the things that I've been praying constantly about for weeks, months, and even years? How do you truly know that these desires that you have in your heart are truly from God? What is the difference between temporary pleasure and a lasting, or fulfilling your lasting purpose? What are some real life stories of surrender and divine redirection that you've seen God do in your life, that you now are thankful that God redirected those things for you? I want you to ask yourself that. And then what I want you to put in the comments: what is something you're trusting God for right now that if He doesn't give it to you, you believe is His divine will of protection for you? Again, what is something right now that you're trusting God for that if He doesn't give to you is His divine protection for you? I pray that this inspires you, and I pray that this blesses you to think, because again, we say what we want from God, but we got to trust that if God doesn't give it to him, it doesn't align with His purpose and intent for our lives. Be blessed, my sister and brother. Share this with somebody that you know is wanting something right now for God, but they've been praying and it doesn't seem like it's happening. This will provoke them to think, is what I'm praying for God's best for me? I pray that this bless you, my sister and brother. Shalom.